concerns about Clarence Thomas accepting gifts
No, not
from
at
a
all.
donor and not disclosing
Not at
as
all.
required?
Nah, bribery's not a problem at all in America. It's totally acceptable for a supposed impartial Supreme Court justice to accept lavish, undisclosed gifts and trips from mega donors that are in connection to 8 different cases that have been brought before the Supreme Court. It's totally acceptable to take those kinds of bribes. Can you hear the sarcasm?
You've probably heard by now that Clarence Thomas, who's a conservative justice on the Supreme Court, has accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars of gifts and free trips from a big Republican donor. This guy's name is Harlan Crow.
A cretin who, by the way, has a whole garden shrine of Nazi memorabilia, including numerous statues, 2 different Hitler paintings, and as well a signed copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf. Yeah, take bribes from that jolly good soul. What a great guy.
Now, this is a big deal because judges, whether they're on the Supreme Court or on the state court, are not supposed to accept free stuff from anybody. But in particular, you're definitely not supposed to accept free stuff from people who have cases before your court. That's a conflict of interest.
In at least 8 different cases, Harlan Crow has been connected to conservative business groups like the anti-tax group Club for Growth, where he sits on the prestigious Founders Committee. And these conservative business organizations have filed amicus briefs and provided legal arguments before the Supreme Court. So for Harlan Crow to be lavishly bribing a Supreme Court justice under the table through undisclosed gifts, yeah, it's definitely a bribe, and I think that Americans can see past it.
You can't have judges secretly accepting trips and free gifts from big companies or big CEOs or billionaires that have interests before the courts.
But what about Congress? Can they accept big money bribes from corporations? You guessed it, of course they can. Take Easter Island headman Republican Kevin McCarthy in the beginning of this video. He raised $27.78 million in just 2020 alone from largely moneyed corporate interests. Same with Chris Murphy, the Democratic senator from Connecticut that is in that video calling out Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. He has also taken $12 million in just 2020 alone from largely corporate moneyed interests. They all do it.
But this is all legal. It's all legal because there's no code of conduct that applies to the Supreme Court. And that's what we have to change.
And this will continue to happen until we pass legislation to get money out of politics. And as soon as we pass a bill to actually rein in the corruption and ethics of the Supreme Court. And it will continue to happen as long as Citizens United is also in place. Things in America must change.
And so it's time for Congress to pass something called the Supreme Court Ethics Act. And that bill makes sure that there is a code of conduct that is developed that applies to the Supreme Court so that any justice, like Clarence Thomas, would be prohibited from accepting gifts from people that have cases before the court and would have to disclose any gifts that they get from people like Harlan Crow.
And this is why we need politicians, regardless of your political affiliation, politicians that do not take corporate PAC money, that do not take lobbyist money, because we as Americans deserve a representative democracy where everyone's voice, whether you're rich or poor, black, white, gay or straight, all of our voices are heard, not the rich, wealthy elite that's in Washington telling us what we can and cannot do with our bodies or imposing an agenda of tax cuts for the rich. Bribery in any form is disgusting, and unfortunately, yet again, the American people have been played.
Yeah, I don't feel really great about the Justice Department doing anything. I don't feel really great about this current Senate Judiciary Committee doing anything, because the thing that needs to happen right now is for Thomas to have some dignity and resign.
My name is Scott Johnson. You can find more of me on my YouTube, which is in the description below, The Gays. I just posted some new videos. Go and check it out. I'm also on TikTok. That's also in the description below. And most importantly, do not forget to smash that subscribe button to The Breakdown. Do it for my crown.